Here is a question for you. Is artificial intelligence in healthcare just the hype or the key to billion-dollar breakthroughs? Angeli Möller, a data science pioneer who's transformed pharma giants and is now Chief Executive Health Officer at Zülke Group, shares her vision for sustainable innovation in this SPARK20 episode. In only 24 minutes, learn how to spot winning artificial intelligence startups, avoid costly traps, and lead with impact. Insights for investors, entrepreneurs, and leaders. If this short version sparks your interest, I encourage you to explore the full episode. Please remember to like, follow, and share this podcast. It truly helps us reach more listeners like you. Stay tuned and dive into the full episode for more. Let's get started. So we are still early in your opinion. So pharma is not fully on this artificial intelligence robotics trend yet. So there is still some room in the industry. Did I understand?
You can always point to examples. So I think it's come a long way in the last 5 years. And I think you can always pull together case studies if you want to, where you can show every single pharmaceutical company has taken machine learning and used it in a set of specific use cases and specific studies. And I would say the two pharmaceutical companies I've worked for were really pushing innovation, were really making investments into these technologies. But in terms of it being embedded in the core business, instead of it just being, it's over here and it's a use case, it's an innovation too, it's just the way we do things now. We just do it this way. It's faster, it's more effective, it's cheaper, happens to use new technologies, but it's just the way we do business now. That, I think, is not there yet. And I think there's a lot more potential to make these new technologies part of the core business. I mean, of course, in another industry, you wouldn't even call them new technologies anymore. It's almost revealing that I use that terminology, that I'm from the pharmaceutical industry. But I see that there is just so much scope to make it part of the core business. To even how do you engage with your customers? How do you get the information up to key opinion leaders and hospital partners? How do you make sure that all of your internal employees can communicate and find all of the information that they need very quickly? Again, my passion right now for manufacturing, how do you get that process to be as high quality, as high yield as possible? I think there's just a lot more to do.
And you were attracted to artificial intelligence in healthcare. What motivated you to go into this direction, although back in these days, it was not a common thing to do?
And I think, Christian, that a lot of my experiences resonate with yours. So even I remember speaking to someone in 2016 who just said they didn't believe in artificial intelligence. That was their entire statement and sentence. And this is quite an influential person in the industry, and said, I do not believe in artificial intelligence. Punct. End of discussion. I would say that it's still very important to look at what is the reality of how the money is made in this industry and how a patient really is supported and benefits in this industry. So ultimately, the question isn't, is it using machine learning? The question is, does the medicine work? And that should be the question. That's the right question to ask. Does the medicine work? Does the diagnostic tool work? Those are the questions that you need to ask. Does it use machine learning? Yes or no? Okay, that's interesting, but does it work? And that's true in many, many industries, not just in healthcare. Does the product work? Does it meet an unmet customer need? I do think, though, that the big hype cycle, and of course, Gartner just popped out their latest report on the AI the AI hype cycle, did lead to a lot of fraud. So a lot of false claims, people continuing to claim that artificial intelligence could do things that it simply couldn't. And that level of fraud led to a lot of disillusionment. It also led to certain investors losing money because there were big claims made and then those claims didn't pan out. So I'm very sympathetic to people who went through that situation. But on the other side, there was a trend in which some companies really rebuilt their entire pipeline of how they develop new drugs, how they develop new products, using all the technologies available to them, one of which was artificial intelligence. They said, I'm going to use whatever's available to me to make the best product. And they've been tremendously successful. And often machine learning was a big part of their success. And then you see others who just continued not to use all of the tools available for them to make the best product and then suffered accordingly. That's a shame to see. And I think that's where, at the core of everything I do, is saying you have to marry the technical expertise with the business acumen, because there are people who will claim something can do everything when it simply can't, and you need to be able to see through that and find your way through that.
It's amazing how advanced these Southeast Asian countries are. So it's Korea, China, Japan, so down Singapore. You worked in 120 countries, or led teams in over 120 countries. And how do you see the world when it comes to innovation? I mean, as a European, I always like to think Europe is the most advanced region. Then I started traveling to Asia 10 years ago, and it was always like a trip to the future. How do you see it?
I would say for anyone, whether you're European, Asian, American, from anywhere else, African, it's important to have an awareness for your biases. So to not get, for instance, a Eurocentric viewpoint. I don't know if you've been in international meetings, and sometimes it can be amusing when you listen to people who have got a viewpoint where they really think, the innovation is in their space. There's nothing to learn from any of the other regions of our planet, and they really think that they know everything. But I would say that's a danger that everyone in business has to watch out for, be aware of when you might have tunnel vision because of your particular background. When I look at innovation in particularly the machine learning space, I'm going to be a bit boring here because it often comes into what were the data availability, data privacy regulations, how can you access data, how easy is it? And that has a big effect on where you see the growth of certain industries. Were they able to collect endless data on all of their end users without having to worry about end user privacy considerations? And if so, suddenly they have much, much stronger algorithms than anybody else or any of their competitors. So I think that's something that leads to different bubbles of innovation that we've seen in machine learning based industries over time. I think the interesting part as well is also looking at where you have a sustainable growth. Some investors, maybe are looking for something that will be big, grow big quickly, maybe won't exist in 10 years, but it went through a boom. And I think for me, I'll say honestly, I'm always very interested in where you have a sustainable growth trajectory, where you have also a country, a policy set, but also a CEO, a leader, a founder who's interested in that sustainable trajectory, who's looking to build something to last. And I find that very interesting to do. And different, I would say it's, for me, I wouldn't be able to say one country, because as leaders change, as the president or the prime minister or the political party changes in different countries, you see different shifts in policy, and then they encourage or support different models, whether it's a big boom or this maybe more sustainable growth.
What were the hallmark moments of artificial intelligence in pharma, in your opinion?
It's interesting. I think looking back, it's definitely at the point where small biotech companies started to have platforms where machine learning was a larger part of the drug discovery platform. So if end of 2018, beginning of 2019, I co-founded, together with some extremely innovative CEOs, an organization called the Alliance for Artificial Intelligence in Healthcare. So that organization we then launched at JP Morgan at the Biotech Showcase. And it is made up of companies that at the time were really championing the use of machine learning in healthcare, and particularly in drug discovery. So most of them were drug discovery companies. And at the beginning, it was met with a lot of skepticism by the pharmaceutical industry. So the membership was really, even today, it's still a lot of biotech companies. It's a lot of smaller companies. And what made a difference was when those companies started to bring things into clinical development. Because I said it at the very beginning of this podcast, in the end, does the medicine work? That should be what's important. That should always be what's most important. And as they started to show in clinical studies that these molecules where the drug discovery pathway had been much faster or much cheaper because of machine learning, were still highly effective in the clinical study with a good safety profile, then that was the point, I think, where people started to really sit up and pay attention. I still think we're still at the early years of that.
What are the ethical considerations that we have to deal in healthcare these days when it comes to data generation and making sure that the data is safe for our patients?
Now, it's an unpopular opinion. I work with people all the time who say, no, I absolutely hate all of these regulations and guardrails. But I've always worked in a heavy regulated industry. So I'm not, there's no part of me that gets worried. I think if you read through the documents, and again, if you're used to working in a regulated industry, you see that they're all quite manageable. So I'll give you an example from the EU AI Act. In there, one of the examples they give, they talk about hiring, so software for hiring people, and how to manage biases in something. So it doesn't immediately exclude all applicants who have dark-colored skin just because the algorithm was built with an inherent bias. So it might sort people based on, did they go to a particular university? That's not a racist sorting mechanism. But then that university might not have an intake of people of color. So you have a secondary screening criteria there. You have a bias just because of the way you built your algorithm that you wouldn't have intended, but it suddenly comes out. And has just very simple rules about how, making it possible to look at how you tested the software, just publishing how you tested the software, and having some basic good practices about testing for these sorts of biases. And I think when I look at these, my response is you should be doing that anyway. Why on earth would you not do that anyway? And if there's a helpful little set of checklists that help you make sure that you're not accidentally doing something that would hurt your business tremendously. I mean, if you get caught for accidentally having racist hiring practices, you're going to massively hurt your business just through having made a foolish mistake. So why would you not want a simple checklist, a simple set of rules that is going to stop you from shooting yourself in the foot as you go into this new and exciting technology where you might in your company not have had a lot of experience before? So I think that's one thing that I think when I look through these regulations. I think on healthcare access, I do think in the end it is critical that the data become available. So I sat on the management board of a charity called RareX, which is for patients with ultra-rare diseases, and it helped patients to make their data accessible to researchers, because obviously very few patients with ultra-rare disease, very little data available to develop new medicines. And it was so important to discovering new medicines for what is mostly a patient population made up of children, extremely vulnerable children suffering from debilitating rare diseases with very few treatment options. The only solution is to make their data available and to make it safely available. So I think it is important to reduce the cost and reduce the burden of data access. And I think that's a great way to stimulate research into new cures, research into new medications, new diagnostics, to lower the burden for that innovation. And at the same time, I think there are technical best practices that allow you to protect patient data. So we have our banking data, which we also expect to be protected. There is lots of data that we expect to have protected, and I think there are really well-established mechanisms for protecting that data. It's just important that if you're an organization that is handling patient data, you take the time to make sure you've got the right experts, to make sure you know how to do it.
What was your motivation to found your own consultancy company?
There's a lot of entrepreneurism in my family. So It was more, I was a bit the odd one out who said, no, I'm just being an employee, albeit a global executive in a huge company, but I'm still good with that. I don't mind having a boss if it's the right boss. And so I was more the odd one out, and it's more common in my family to be somebody who starts your own business and runs your own business. And that's over multiple generations. That's been a common trend. So I didn't have in mind that this was what I was going to do, but the company I did work for, Roche, it's a really great company, very supportive company, and they allowed me to do advisory and consulting work beside my Roche contract. So I had then a contract with UK Research and Innovation, and I had a scientific advisor contract with a biotech company called Multiomic Health, which do fantastic research into metabolomic diseases. And I've been working with them for a few years now. So I already had then this track record of having done this consultancy for a while. And I was seeing that to be really effective in the pharmaceutical industry as well, that in the roles that I had, there was it was really clear what I needed to do. It was really clear, okay, if you want this team to be really successful, you've been in these sorts of roles 7 years now. If you want to continue in going down this route of success, this is exactly what it would look like. And it was pretty clear what it would look like. I knew what would need to be done for the next step. And I just thought, do you know, it feels a little bit too obvious. It's a road, you're on it, you know exactly what you need to do. Some of it is just keep doing the same stuff and you're just on that road. And I thought I have, made good investments, started probably like many of your listeners again, I started investing in the stock market myself in my 20s, every month, steady portion of my salary, put it aside, used it to build up my own personal investment portfolio. And so I just felt like, I'm in a good place. I'm in a place where I have 2 great clients already. I'm in a place where I feel very comfortable in terms of taking on more risk, more adventure. And I see that there's really something useful I can do. I see that there are people who are reaching out to me in my network, reaching out to me across the industry, who are actually getting some use out of what I can do for them. And so that was the initial trigger for really going into this. But as I then spent more time in it and more thought in it, I think then it became something much bigger than just Angeli as an individual going out and doing this and that. It became then clearer where the opportunities were in the global market. It became also where the opportunities for expanding into something much larger with multiple partners sat. And so that's really the journey that I'm just beginning now in the early stages of, is going from just being Angeli as one individual, going out and doing work, to saying, okay, there are so many requests for more support. There are so many opportunities that are just sitting there. How do we now start to grow? Then that takes us back to our earlier leadership discussion, grow sustainably, so that it's the right people. And one of the things I'm spending time doing now is also just talking to people to see who it has a similar passion for growing businesses, who would be somebody to partner up with, who is equally interested in making a difference through technical expertise, through technical consulting, but also who has a passion for growing a business, not just, another scientist, another engineer, but somebody who really is interested in the commercial side as well.
When we talk about pharma, then you also need scientific expertise in the digital world, and then you need leadership expertise. Is it really necessary to be successful in pharma, in the digital world, to have all 3 areas covered? Or can someone just say, okay, I focus on leadership and I have my experts that I can go to? How do you see the mix of these 3, we'll say, 3 fundamental pillars of leadership?
I've been lucky enough to have leaders like that. I try to be that kind of leader. And I think the success story, again, for companies is that the best talent then want to work for this person. And they stay and they're retained working for this person. Well, the scientific and technical acumen, I was actually speaking to a client yesterday about this. So they were asking me about how necessary this is in a role which is customer facing. So for a customer facing role, how critical is it to have this acumen? I would say that first of all is you can learn it. So if you didn't come up as I did through academia, don't imagine that you can't choose to learn a new skill set. I think we nowadays live quite a long time. And since we live quite a long time, it's important not to be afraid of jumping in and learning a new skill sets. I do think that in the scientific and technical industries, it does make a difference to be able to bring that background. But you have to remember, nobody is an expert in every single part of the biotech or pharmaceutical business. That's why you have a cluster of experts usually. I'll give you an example. So I've specialized in molecular biology, machine learning, and right now I'm doing work on quantum computing with the Science and Technology Facilities Council, which is based in the UK. So those are areas in which I would go and feel very comfortable in. But if you look at a completely different area, like the go-to-market strategy, there are other people who are better qualified in a go-to-market strategy. And I think a key strength as a leader is to be able to say, and now I will bring in somebody else who has that strength and make sure that the client, the customer, or the company is getting really what they need in terms of the right expertise. I think then, the third part of leadership is really strategy and vision, knowing where you want the organization to go, being able to have that resilience as you face setbacks, as you continue to drive the organization into the right direction. And that is, I think you just have to just have a lot of adrenaline, just be the sort of person who has a very clear idea of what the direction is. And I think then where I really see leaders that I admire are those who are able to have that urgency, that sense of direction to overcome obstacles, and yet at the same time listen to their teams so that they don't switch off and become blinkered while they move towards their goal. And then that's really, for me, the true strength of a great leader.
What's your prediction? Is this a point in time? Is this something that we can reach to make such a diagnostic possibility available to everybody?
So what are the things that I could provide in that person's home on a solution to reduce the burden, to make it easier, to have the flags? One is to have the data tracking, but the other thing is to have those behavioral nudges that really good applications give us and start to change the way we act and think. So I think it as the economics play out, then it's inevitable. And you see this in many countries already. So I was in China just last year and just looking at everything that is accessible to somebody living in Shanghai, for instance. Not everywhere in China, but in the bigger cities, they have exactly what I think you're describing.
What Angeli makes clear is this: real transformation doesn't come from buzzwords. It comes from courageous leadership, bold hiring, and clear vision. If you are an investor, founder, or policymaker, this is the mindset that separates legacy companies from those still chasing potential. To hear the full conversation, watch or listen to the full episode linked in the description. And if this clip sparked something, share it with someone who needs to hear it.